Shazam ISIS Hour. A full hour of exciting adventure with the world's most powerful mortals. Captain Marvel, champion of truth and justice. And ISIS, dedicated foe of evil. Both together in the Shazam ISIS Hour. Chosen from among all others by the immortal elders Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, Mercury, Billy Batson and his mentor travel the highways and byways of the land on a never-ending mission to right wrongs, to develop understanding, and to seek justice for all. In time of dire need, young Billy has been granted the power by the immortals to summon awesome forces at the utterance of a single word. Shazam! A word which transforms him in a flash into the mightiest of mortal beings, Captain Marvel.
Welcome back, everyone, to an all-new episode of the Shazam ISIS Podcast. It's your old mentor, John S. Drew here, and we're continuing our journey down the highways and byways of the land, discussing those two iconic shows of the 1970s we loved so much, Shazam and The Secrets of ISIS. And joining me, as he has been since the very beginning, when we started this several years ago now, is the Big Red Cheese himself, Mr. Richard F. Lee. Hey, Richard.
Well, hello, Mentor John. Good to hear from you. I'm at a Jewish deli right now, I got to tell you. And the guy looked at me funny when I ordered a ham and cheese sandwich.
Yeah, no. You don't do that. You're being a little insensitive like the guys in this episode today.
Well, hey, I thought the customer's always right, okay? Oy vey.
Oh, oy vey. And what an episode it is we're going to be talking about here. I'm really looking forward to this one. I had actually watched it ages ago, took the notes, and then, like as I said in the last episode, things happened. And today I went and purposely rewatched this one because it is on DC Universe as part of the Shazam series there, just to see it in beautiful HD. And God, it is such a great episode, and it holds up so well today.
Yes, and I wanted to give a shout-out to the folks at Warner Brothers and thank them publicly, along with, I think, other fans. Thanks for bringing back the Shazam TV show and taking what, if the documentary on there is as accurate as I believe that it is, it took them, 9 months to digitally remaster all 28 episodes of Shazam?
Yep.
Including the moral tags at the end?
Yeah.
That's a lot of work for a 44-year-old television show.
Exactly.
They put a lot of effort into that, and they did it for us fans. So I think they need to be recognized for that, and I hope that this will introduce a whole new generation of fans to the Shazam television show.
I certainly do, too. Let's get into this review here, Richard. The episode is called Bitter Herbs. It aired September 18th, 1976. We have a new writer here, Ray Goldstone. I do not recognize that name at all. Our director, also new, John Pazer. He would go on to direct one more episode of the series.
And we have a guest cast. Now, I have my mini-me Captain Marvel action figure at my side. Would you like to read the guest cast, Cap? Nah, I don't think he'll point at it. Okay, so I have it on my screen, John, and he's pointing right now at the guest cast. Lyndon Childs as Orrin Clyde. Now, I've seen him in different television shows through the 70s and 80s. So he was an active actor at the time.
Right.
There's a Daryl Glazer as Joel Oliveira, David Gruner as Yale Michaels, Milt Cogan as Jack Michaels, and James Van Patten as Harry. I met one of the Van Patten boys. Can't say we really talked, but we were working on the set of a TV show at the Paramount Studios.
Oh.
And there was not James Van Patten, one of the Van Patten sons, because there's many of them. And I think if I remember correctly, he was directing the show that I was serving as an extra on. So the world's a small place.
I was going to ask you, is that James Van Patten of the Van Patten family there? So, all right. How many Van Patten boys are there?
Let's see. I'm just scrolling through. It doesn't mention his other brothers.
Huh.
Son of actor Dick Van Patten. Okay, here they are. Vincent Van Patten, Nels Van Patten, half-nephew of Timothy Van Patten. Father, of course, was Dick Van Patten. So there's 2 brothers and a half-nephew, so we can say that.
Okay. I don't know. It always sounds like there's more of them. Maybe it's because you've also got the Van Dyke kids running around as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I say we need more patent and less patent leather. I don't know. I know that there would be confusion with anything named Van.
Right. There you go. I mean, I've got Van Johnson on the brain, too.
Exactly. Yeah. Van Johnson.
So anyway, and this is also interesting, too. I mean, we've got 5 guest stars for this episode.
Yes, and often happens with Shazam. It's not always consistent. You see an episode with many guest actors, and then you see an episode with only 2 or 3 at the very most.
Exactly. Yep. So let's get into this here. We begin with our RV pulling up.
You know, we're late and we're lost.
I know.
You're some navigator, Billy. I think you put us over the border into Mexico.
Mentor, you've got the map upside down.
As they're looking at the map, this truck speeds right past them.
He's blown a tire.
Shazam!
And I didn't get a chance to check the timestamp on it, but this is the earliest into the episode we see Billy make a change.
Yes, it is. And what we're going to take note of is that this episode jumps right into the action, right into the story, and it uses Captain Marvel no less than 3 times. This is a record, I think, John.
I think you're right, yeah. Now, I love this because it reminds me of when Jackson did this in the first season. Marvel flies alongside the truck and brings it to a halt.
Really glad you came along. Not sure this truck was going over.
I'm glad to be of help, but I'd drive a little slower on those curves.
Yeah, I guess you're right about that.
You need any help with those?
No, I'm fine now. Appreciate your help. Thanks.
When I look at the cinematography, it shows the high camera angle of the truck driving out of control. I went, wow, the days before Google Earth. If they had a cell phone, they would have had a digital map and a speeding Ford truck. That's definitely science fiction.
Wow.
Right,
Can I give you a hand?
No, I can take care of it, thanks.
Maybe you could help me then. I'm looking for Desert City.
Sure. It's 2 roads up, and you make a left turn. Who are you looking for?
Jack Michaels, an old friend. You know him?
Michaels. That Jewish family that just moved in here. Yeah, I know him.
Now, Mentor finds Billy on the way. Obviously, off-screen, Captain Marvel returns back into Billy Batson. He finds Billy on the way and comments to Billy that there's more than the Border Patrol that he doesn't like. So this sets up the story right here, what this story is going to be about.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Because Jack Michaels is dealing with the Border Patrol and such in this story. Now, later, Mentor and Billy go and meet up with Jack's family. That includes Jack's son, Yale. Yale is explaining to Billy about the celebration of Sukkot and how Billy is there wearing a yarmulke, which is a nice bit there. And they're out there, the family, to help the Mexican authorities with smugglers of religious artifacts. Now, Yale is doing pretty well in his new environment, but he's obsessed with joining a local club called the Overlanders.
Yeah, hasn't it always been the case? We've always been obsessed with wanting to join local clubs ourselves when we were kids, maybe, because we didn't want to be left out.
Well, we didn't want to be left out, but this is an opportunity for him to really get into the community and stuff because everybody, I guess, is in this club and all. And it would really make him feel like he belongs if he's in the club.
Yeah, and that makes sense, too.
Yeah.
Because we all want to have a sense of belonging.
Right.
Except for me. I love being an isolationist. Ha! I hoard my toys and watch reruns of Shazam all by myself. Ha! So, in the next scene now, we see Mr. Clyde drive his fix-and-repair daily truck with Overlanders stenciled onto the side and with a sign on the driver's door. Now, he speaks to a young member, Harry, of this club that Yale wants to join and wants to keep Yale from joining because he's Jewish. He wants Harry to keep up the pressure to dissuade him, short of getting the kid hurt. Now, this is very interesting how it just sets up the whole thing. Yeah. It sets up the story. Right here, you find out his motivation. He's rather bigoted, doesn't like Jewish people, apparently. So that's really what this is about, and we don't know yet how this is going to result in a possible tragedy that will need to call on the powers of Captain Marvel to rescue. We don't know how that's going to play out yet. Right. But at least it sets up the story.
What I think is interesting is that he makes the comment short of the kid getting hurt. So clearly you're going to intimidate him. It's not even a matter of, oh, this isn't the club for you. There's going to be, as it says, pressure to dissuade him.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, we cut to the RV and Billy is contacted by the elders.
O elders fleet and strong and wise, appear before my seeking eyes.
People must learn to understand, Billy. Not to judge someone because he is different from you or worships differently. Soon you will find someone who hasn't learned that lesson and who must be stopped before it is too late.
And interestingly enough, maybe it's by this time Billy is done, but he has no real questions. I guess Billy's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Up to a point. Now, yeah, we don't be too different here. I mean, I don't know where this is going to go in the story. We have to let it unfold, I guess. We got to learn our lesson. We haven't learned our lesson yet.
Right.
So next, Harry is taking the chain off of Yale's bike when Yale comes along. Oh, this is great. He's got a wrench in his hand. He's taking the chain off his bike. Jeez. So that's when Yale, he doesn't see that, obviously. He confronts Harry about being hot and bothered for being Jewish. And that's if this is going to affect him being in the club. And
right.
Then the comment to that is, well, you would be the only one of your people in the club. Like, well, yeah, we've all been there, John. I recall it was Groucho Marx who asked to be in a country club where they didn't allow Jewish people in at the time.
Really?
He goes, yeah, that's what I heard. Somebody out there in podcast land may be able to verify this. He wanted to get into a swimming pool in a country club where it was a members-only club, and he wasn't allowed to join because I guess he was Jewish. He said, well, no, I don't know if this might be apocryphal. It may not be true, but the story goes, and he went, well, what if you allowed me to come in halfway? I'm only half Jewish. Or who was it that said I wouldn't join any group that would allow me to be a member?
Oh, man. I'm trying to think of, like, where I would be the standout. I always seem to play it safe and just go to things I knew I'd be easily accepted in.
Yeah.
So, Yale rides home, and on the way, the chain falls off. Billy sees Yale riding out of control, so once again...
Shazam!
And throws himself literally on a boulder before rolling it out of the way because the boulder, or he was going to hit the boulder, he was going to crash into it the way it was. Then he hurls a wood beam over a gap in the road that the bike can then ride over, and then finally he brings the bike to a stop. Again, nice little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? The whole stunt work and such, even though it's all with props, it's good.
Oh, I thought this was a real awesome scene.
Right.
I mean, that is terrific. The Captain Marvel does something similar in another episode.
Captain Marvel. Gosh, how can I thank you enough? I'm glad to help. You okay? I'm fine. Here's Mentor. He'll take you home. You're in good hands now.
I can't understand what happened. I just had my bike fixed at Mr. Oliveira's, and he said it was in perfect condition.
What are you thinking, Yale?
Well, tomorrow's my initiation test in the Overlanders, and just got a bad feeling about it, Mentor. Very bad.
This is terrific. Now, what I don't understand, though, is this a moped that he's riding, that Yale is driving?
No.
Moped?
Well, I guess it is, because it is motorized, isn't it?
Yeah, it's motorized, and so I'm not very good at this. I've only had a bike. I never had a moped. A combination of a motorcycle and a bike. Okay, so the chain gets busted, but you can still hear the motor going, and he's trying to put a stop to it, and nothing works, and so he doesn't realize that his chain was tampered with.
So the Act 2 opens, it's the next day. Yale has to undergo his initiation, which consists of him crossing the desert, climbing Snake Mountain, and getting back to the headquarters of the club before time runs out. Seems pretty simple, right?
Yeah, it seems pretty simple. Snake Mountain. I didn't know He-Man was in this story.
I was going to say.
Where's Skeletor?
I resisted that.
Property.
Yes, there you go.
So, at Mr. Oliveira's shop, Mentor tells Billy Batson that the chain was cut clean. Why would he tell this to Billy outside of the place? Didn't Billy hear this himself? It's exposition for the audience. Mentor wants to get to the initiation site because he's worried about Yale.
Yes. And Yale now has been making his way across, but he discovers that his water was tampered with as Mentor and Billy pull up to the start of where the initiation is.
What's so funny?
Yale, he just found out I put salt water in his canteen.
Oh, that'll help.
Hey, who are they?
Friends of the Michaels. I think I better leave. And you better get out there and make sure he doesn't pass that test.
Clyde runs off, and Harry pulls out in a dune buggy.
Nothing says 1970s more than a dune buggy, right?
Hey, Spider-Man had a dune buggy. Steve Austin had a dune buggy.
Yeah, and if we can trust the Mego Toy Company, all the superheroes had dune buggies to ride around in. They made no sense, of course, for a superhero to ride in a dune buggy. But
right.
So the next scene we see Harry harassing Yale about finishing the test, trying to pressure him just to quit. Mm-hmm. And he slips, and then while he's doing that, he slips and sprains his leg. Now, Yale helps Harry. Harry admits that he pulled the stunts on him, and Yale had his suspicions, of course. And he's going to help Harry get back on his feet and get him some medical treatment if he can.
Right.
Now, Yale sees home. He sees a house, which turns out to be Mr. Clyde's place. Yeah. He takes Harry there to get some help. Now, this is interesting. Mr. Clyde tells Harry he wasn't to be on his property until they finish the trip. Now, that's a clue that he's up to something, and he's got something to hide. Now, despite this, Yale convinces Clyde to help Harry, and they head into town to see the doctor.
Yeah, which is going to lead to some more trouble as well. Now, meanwhile, Mentor is concerned that Yale didn't come back. Of course, they don't know what happened. Clyde isn't being subtle anymore about how he feels about Yale and the family as he's driving Yale and Harry to the town, and then something falls from the back of the truck.
All right, give me that. Give me that!
These are the art treasures from Mexico. Dad suspected that they've been smuggled across the border near here. You've used the club as a cover-up, right?
You're a pretty smart kid, aren't you?
And you smuggled this stuff into town under the club's camping gear.
Not bad at all.
Hey, Mr. Clyde, we're not headed back toward town. Where are you taking us?
Looks like you just have to wait and see, Harry.
So, now it's getting tense. And it's funny, too, because I was just listening the other day to one of the old episodes of the podcast, and we asked the question about, it was the episode where Captain Marvel has to stop the guy who mugged Mentor from taking off in the helicopter and stuff. And we were asking the question, he didn't have a gun. Why didn't Mentor do something? And, I kind of feel the same way here. I'm like, when I look at this, I'm like, here's two young men who could do something to this guy. It's not like he pulls a gun on them. to try and stop him from taking them wherever he plans to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it didn't do that, but they could have jumped out, and well, the other kid had a bad bum leg anyway. But hey, it's better than having to worry about being taken against their will somewhere. That would not have been feasible, though.
Right.
It's just that they're a captive audience, effectively. They need to depend on him to take him to the doctor, and they're not really free to escape. So.
Right. Exactly.
All right, move. When you guys get out of here, I'll be long gone. Don't get too thirsty, boys.
And he plans to leave him there as a mountain lion is on the scene. Now, here we go again. Is this stock footage mountain lion that we see? The Wrangler's off camera, I suppose, if they use one.
Right.
Well, no, I think this is shades of season 1 where Captain Marvel has to wrestle the lion in the zoo.
Right.
I can't climb any further. I'm not going to leave you.
Oh, boy. So, what do you want to bet that when Clyde wrestles with this mountain lion, that's the Wrangler right there?
Now, they could have gone in any direction.
People must learn to understand, Billy.
Soon you will find someone who hasn't learned that lesson and who must be stopped before it is too late.
Mentor, I have a feeling I better go on ahead.
Be my guest.
Shazam!
Flashback, big thing. Now, this is why I diverge again from this. What I miss about the Shazam movie with Zach Levi and Asher Angel, they didn't have a flashback scene. That would have been great as a homage to this show. But he becomes Captain Marvel for an unprecedented third time in this show. Getting a little ahead of myself, Captain Marvel flies off and sees the mountain lion. They're making good use of Captain Marvel here.
Yeah, true. But isn't that what Jackson always said they should have done when he was on the show?
All right, girl. On your way now.
They took his ideas and they implemented them after he got canned.
Yeah.
Because Captain Marvel basically starts this show off, and then he's in the middle of the first act, and he comes back for the later act.
Right.
It's terrific. And they make good use of him.
Yes.
So this is really good because this is stuff that even Jackson didn't do. So in the meantime, he confronts the mountain lion, or the animal trainer who was Mr. Clyde Stand-in. Now he's wearing the Captain Marvel suit. You can tell it's the same guy. I think John Davey took a clue from Jackson Boswick. He was not about to wrestle no mountain lion. Nope, the residuals are not worth it. I don't think Screen Actors Guild covers this. So now the mountain lion takes off while he sees to Yale and Harry. Now, what is it about the next part of the scene that kind of bothered you, John?
Oh, okay, because, Clyde gets in the car and such, or in the truck, and it is the dodgiest bit of CGI ever in the series to date because Marvel stops the truck, lifts it up, and flies with it by lodging it between basically two plateaus. It's a wonderful idea. It's just so poorly executed. I'm sorry. There's a lot of things I'm willing to suspend my disbelief with and say, I get it. It's the 1970s. This is painful.
Well, yeah, it's not that great of a shot how it looks, but how in the world did they get that truck up there in the first place? Well, that's not bad. Now, what Captain Marvel says is he sees, as is pointed out to him, that Clyde's getting away. He's getting to his truck. Captain Marvel says, oh, no, you don't. I thought Captain Marvel was going to punch this guy in the butt. I thought we were going to see some violence and he was going to throw down with this guy.
Right.
When I was a kid, I'm going, all right, we're going to see some real punches getting thrown. Like, oh, darn. Nothing of the sort. No violence.
None.
Like, why do I tune into superhero shows? I want to see somebody get beat up, okay? Oh, so you had problems with the special effects here. This is like an awful blue screen or green screen, whatever they did.
Yeah, it just doesn't work for me. Not this. After everything we've seen, and again, like I say, whether it's the plank or the boulder and Captain Marvel straining to hold it and all that kind of stuff, fine with it. But just we could have done it in certain ways that wouldn't have looked as dodgy. I think that's just my take.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's all they could do for limits of 1970.
No, and again, it's not going to deter me from my rating. It just was the only letdown in the episode for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's established that Captain Marvel can pick up all sorts of things.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. But it didn't. We haven't gotten to the review yet. But as far as how it rates, but that didn't bother me too much. It's awful. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's bad. It's bad green screen technology, but it's a superhero show for kids, and on an awful 1970s television. That's not with no digital remastering, no 4K, no 1070, whatever the ratio is. I forgot the ratio. It didn't look bad. It was on the tube at the time, and it didn't look bad.
Right.
But of course, on a flat screen TV, it's too obvious, and it does detract from the story. So this is the epilogue.
Well, it's certainly wonderful to have all of Yale's friends with us.
Well, Mr. Michaels, it's nice to be here with you on this last day of... What's the name of this holiday again?
Sukkot.
Sukkot.
Yeah, it's nice to be here, Mr. Michaels. But what's this Sukkot all about, anyway?
Well, thankfulness for the harvest and all of God's blessings. You see, the Jews wandered in the desert for 40 years. So we build these huts to remember their hardships.
Yes, and there were overlanders in those days, too, Harry. Just as there were bigots.
Yeah, well, we're going to start a new club now that Clyde's been arrested.
Yeah, sure be a nice one without him, too.
Oh, much better.
Yale, I think we're ready.
Baruch atoi Hashem, Eloheinu melech ha'alom, hamotzi lehem men haaretz.
Hey, what's that mean?
It's a kind of prayer before eating.
Oh. But then it's the same as grace.
That's right, Harry. It's exactly the same.
Now, I went back and studied a lot of this stuff, John. I was a graduate student, and I had to learn all this stuff myself. I had to go back and relearn it because I'm just not going to remember all of it. It's rather complicated. But in essence, Sukkot is a traditional Ashkenazi pronunciation of Sukkos, Feast of Booths, commonly translated in English as the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, tabernacles are booths. They are tents.
Right.
They're temporary. They're temporary. They're not meant to be permanent structures. So sometimes known as the Feast of the Ingathering, it's a biblical Jewish holiday celebrated on the 15th day of Tishri. Now, I had to go look that up at one point. It varies from late September to late October, so this storyline would have occurred sometime in October. Now, back in my old research, drumming up some of this stuff, during the existence of the Jewish temple, there were two temples. There was Solomon's temple, then there was Herod's temple. It was one of three pilgrimage festivals on which the Israelites were commanded to perform a pilgrimage to the temple. Now, Sukkot also has a double meaning. The one mentioned in the book of Exodus is an agricultural ingathering, a feast of ingathering at the year's end, and marks the end of the harvest time and thus of the agricultural year in the land of Israel. They were big into feasts and festivals. They loved their festivals. They loved their harvest times. And so that marked the end of that harvest time, and the more elaborate religious significance from the book of Leviticus, where you find this account of Feast of Tabernacles, is that the commemoration of the Exodus, the people leaving Egypt, and the dependence on the people of Israel on the will of their God, Yahweh. Now, the holiday lasts 7 days in Israel and 8 in the diaspora. Okay, fans of the podcast, you know what a diaspora is.
I was going to say, I know that word, but I don't know.
Diaspora is where the Jews were spread out all over the place. Diaspora, they were spread out because of invasions and fled for their lives, and they're found all over the world and not gathered into one place anymore. Spread out. The prayer Yale prays at the meal, I had to go back and I learned some of this stuff, and I put it out of my mind because I'm really rusty in my Hebrew. I forgot most of it. I had to learn Hebrew in graduate school. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech halom haaretz lechem min haaretz. Oh, it's translation. I remembered having to learn this. I really did. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King in the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Now, this prayer is prayed over a meal with bread made from oats, barley, rye, spelt, or wheat. Now, this episode is the only one of Shazam noted for featuring a prayer. Now, interestingly enough, I never caught this as a kid. I'm watching this show. Solomon is one of the Hebrew elders. Everybody else is Greek, from Greek mythology.
Right.
Solomon was a historical character. He was Israel's third king, and here he is hanging out with the Greeks. His name begins with S, and he starts off the acronym Shazam. And what if Billy Batson were to drop to Jack Michaels, hey, I know Solomon personally. I talk with him every day. Yeah, I don't think that would have gone over very well, but they didn't tie in Solomon to this episode at all, which would have been ironic because the first temple was commissioned and built by King Solomon. It lasted for a while, and it was destroyed in the year 586 BC. It was destroyed by the Babylonian invaders, and Jerusalem was decimated and wiped out, and many, not all, but many of the Hebrews of the time were taken into captivity for about 70 years, John. I don't know if you're aware of that. For 70 years, they were held captive. And the belief of many of the Jewish people is that the 70 years would end when the temple was rededicated. And so what happened, the temple was burned to the ground, okay, and religious Judaism was somewhat in disarray. They rebuilt it the best they could. And they had their celebrations, and they went back and celebrated the Feast of Tabernacles and other feasts. And then many years later, I say many years, centuries later, King Herod would build a brand new temple in place of Solomon's temple. He effectively would graft on a brand new temple on Solomon's ruins, effectively. And that would be a temple that would last until the year 70 A.D., when the thing got burned down and torched by the Romans. Don't these poor folks get a break, John?
No.
For heaven's sakes, I know the history. It means something to me. It's special to me. This is not just an episode of Shazam that we're reviewing. Some of these elements that the writer put into here about ancient Judaism and observing a feast day that's unique to Judaism, it has special meaning to me because I love studying this type of thing. And it's rather accurate. I thought this was really good and wonderful to introduce a viewing audience to a culture they may not know very well.
I thought it was interesting too because usually when they would do, because let's be honest. I mean, as far as so many people view America, it is a quote unquote Christian society. So when you would do the episode where, you know, we're going to show you the Jewish faith, we're going to show you should tolerate other faiths by showing the Jewish faith. It was always done, though, from the perspective of we the Christians. If you know what I mean, like Little House on the Prairie would have, there's that episode, oh God, I can't even think of his name now, who played the rabbi who came to visit Walnut Grove, and Laura Ingalls became enamored of him. She thought he was a wonderful person and all. You know, it's always from that perspective. Nowhere, and like you said, this is the only time in Shazam that we get anything in the way of religion, which is interesting because here are the Greek gods and here is Solomon, you know, from history and such. Nowhere along the line do we get Billy or Mentor going, you know, that's not what we do in Christian. Like, there's nothing like that. The Jewish faith is front and center in this story.
Yeah, it's mostly a cultural thing here, though. It's really a depiction of culture, and it's not explicit faith insofar as religious dogma of any kind. It's an important a cultural aspect of Judaism here, and it demonstrates that they were part of society, even though that they were marginalized a lot. But interestingly, I'm fascinated with Hebraic studies. It's one of my things. It's a strange hobby I have among all the other things that I do, John. But I'm into Hebraism to some degree, and I'm going to go back and learn some Hebrew. The thing is, it fascinates me as a cultural group how they were able to maintain cohesion, even though they were victims of the diaspora. Mm-hmm. Again, that word where they were spread out all over the world. And so this episode, I think as we're going to get down to taking a look at what we're going to rate this episode, that this is a strong element that will contribute towards the rating that it's going to get.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Before we get to that, though, let's talk about a few of the other elements that we like to talk about here in terms of the stunts. Obviously, fighting the cougar, yeah, it's not John Davey, but it is still a stunt being done there. And I did like the whole way they handled John flying alongside the car, the truck,
yeah,
and then bringing that truck to a halt. I liked the way that all played out.
It did. It did look like something that Jackson would do if he were to be in the role. It did look like that. I thought they did a terrific job with that. Now, technically, this was a mountain lion. You say fighting the cougar.
Cougar,
John?
wow.
I fight cougars. I fight cougars every weekend.
I still have Tanea on the brain from the second season of the $6 Million Man.
Oh, that episode.
Yep.
Well, those aren't exactly the kind of cougars that I fight off every weekend.
Okay.
Oh, boy. Let's look at a fashion statement. Are we going to go into the fashion statement for this episode,
sure,
John?
Let's. Well, you're the one that's bringing the statement this time around because something really caught your eye.
Oh yeah, yarmulkes, baby. What was it? That Adam Sandler song?
Put on your yarmulke. It's time to celebrate Hanukkah. Yeah.
Get your gin and tonica.
Yes.
Celebrate yarmulke. I love the yarmulkes. They look nice. Now we see Billy Batson and Mentor wearing a yarmulke. Now I got to admit, yeah, non-Jewish people can wear them, but it just struck me as strange because I still am learning cultural aspects of Judaism, and I'm looking at Billy Mentor wearing yarmulkes. I'm thinking, are they Jewish now? I don't know, but I guess not. That's just for the purposes of the episode.
Right. Yeah. I dated a Jewish girl for 4 years, and never once, because I guess she wasn't as, into the practice. So when I would have dinner with the family or something, or any of the celebrations and such, they never wore the men. So I didn't wear, a yarmulke. It was never just brought up.
Yeah. But it's a nice cultural touch, especially for a kids' television show in the 1960s. A very nice cultural touch.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not just a moral statement about tolerance or anything like that. There's more to it than that. I think that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah, and we're segueing into the moral of the story for a second. But I also think that it's introducing people to an aspect of life for many people that they didn't understand and would probably be exposed to now for the very first time, especially if you're a 10-year-old child watching this show for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree.
We'll return to Shazam after these messages.
In the news, helping young people with their health problems. This healthcare center on Long Island specializes in treating and counseling young people. This special kind of healthcare is in the news. Sponsored by
Kellogg's, because your best day starts with breakfast.
Lego my new Eggo strawberry flavored waffle.
Lego your what?
Lego my new Eggo strawberry flavored waffle.
Did you say strawberry?
Uh-huh.
No, you didn't say Lego my Eggo regular waffle. Or my Eggo blueberry waffle, did you?
Uh-uh.
Oh, delicious Eggo waffles just like homemade with that great strawberry taste.
Did you say strawberry?
Lego my Eggo.
Start your good breakfast with new Eggo strawberry waffles and regular or blueberry flavor too.
From Kellogg's.
Young people between the ages of 12 and 19 have outgrown their pediatricians, but they often have special health problems. Now, some medical experts believe adolescents need doctors specially trained to treat their problems. On Long Island in New York, medical specialists have set up a healthcare center that is only for young people. Although the atmosphere is informal, the medical care is first-rate. Joyce Ann Shapiro is a typical patient. She has been a diabetic for 9 years. After her doctor takes her medical history and tests her, she is given some advice. She's told to watch her diet and restrict the amount of sugar she eats. After that, she talks to the clinic's psychologist. Young people often feel they are alone with their problems. But when they come to a clinic like this one, they see others with similar problems.
Instead of going to a regular doctor, he has from like little kids to teenagers. Right here, they have just adolescents. And like I think after all adolescents, they know what like everybody's about. Everybody around here is like really friendly. You get to talk and meet new people.
Once a week, the entire team meets to discuss certain patients, their treatment, and their progress.
At which time we decided.
There are only about 100 clinics like this one throughout the United States, but more and more doctors are realizing the need for this kind of care. Medical care for young people is in the news.
Easy Does It with Frankie Avalon. Lots of music and laughter. Easy Does It, new this summer.
Premiering Wednesday night on CBS.
And now, back to Shazam.
Prejudice and bigotry are two words that mean not liking somebody. Calling them names because they're different than we are. Pretty silly, isn't it? In some ways, all of us are different, and others, we're all the same. The important thing about a person is not the color of his hair or skin, his religion, or whether he's tall or short, skinny or fat. What is important is something called character. And that's in yourself. Is he honest? Does he care about others? Is he good? If the answer is yes, call him friend.
I love this. I think this, again, probably one of the best morals in the whole series when, John comes out and says the important thing about a person is their character. Is he good? If you can answer yes, then call him friend. Everything else, you put all that aside. Is he a good, or is she, because we'll update it for 2019, is she good? And if you can say yes, then call that person a friend. That's all that should matter.
Yeah, and also that this show was really geared towards boys. A lot of girls, and so it wouldn't be wrong for to say call him friend. Back in the day when I watched the show as a child, people knew about it, and I would say people, my classmates, the girls knew about it. They didn't watch the show, and I think I was made fun of for liking Shazam so much. Like I said, they should really watch the show. They could learn a lesson or two about tolerance. So, on rating this episode, John, with 3 great uses of Captain Marvel, these were terrific uses. These were not contrived, in my opinion. They were not contrived uses. The appearance of Captain Marvel blended in with the story. It isn't as though, we got to have Captain Marvel in the story. Let's make up a scenario for him. They're writing this, but his appearance felt natural. It didn't feel forced. And with good characters, you got complex characters. You got your antagonist. You got your protagonist. And they were written well-timed into about, a 22-minute story with commercials?
Yeah.
About 20 minutes with a good plot. I consider this 5 out of 5 Yiddish. Holy molies. Oh, way.
I've got to totally agree with you there. 5 holy molies. I would put this up there as one of the best top 5, top 3 of the entire series. I really, really enjoy it. And I urge you, if you're checking out our podcast for the first time and you're hearing us talking about DC Universe and checking out the show there, put this one on first, or put this as one of your first ones to watch if you're inclined to jump around and not watch from the beginning. Mind you watch from the beginning, you're going to see the phenomenal Jackson Boswick and his great performance there as Captain Marvel.
And this episode also, I have to say, it has a moral message. All the shows had moral messages. But this is not too preachy. And I know Shazam and Isis can be preachy from time to time. They were supposed to be. But this isn't too preachy. It shows, here are the goings-on of some people and their interactions and how they dealt with obstacles. And here is an example of a person who's a bigot. Here's somebody who has an understanding of who the person is and does not behave that way and finds out that Yale is not such a bad guy. And at the end, they become friends. So it's not too preachy. It's just telling a story. And I think that with the use of Captain Marvel, this was a story that showed action and adventure. It was very fast-moving. The script came together very quickly. not a whole lot of exposition, John. Not a whole lot.
No.
They showed you the action. They showed you what's going on. They showed you that here's a case where the overlanders are a front for a smuggling operation. They showed you those things without talking too much and having too much exposition. One note here, there's a reference to the authorities, but you don't see a cop. You don't see a cop here.
Right.
No police, no rangers, no highway patrol like Mentor was usually calling on the radio or calling on the cell phone. They could imply the Border Patrol and the authorities without even going too far as that. I think they did really well. Almost this episode could be a nice play. It could be a good play.
Yeah, no, I agree. Overall, fantastic episode. I really enjoyed watching it. I've had fun tonight talking about it with you here, but it's time to start wrapping this up here. Before we do, though, I just want to remind you one more time, head over to DC Universe and make sure you're checking out Shazam there. Sign up for an account because there is discussion of the DC Universe being sort of merged in with Warner's streaming service they want to start. Really, DC Universe should stand alone, and if enough fans sign up, maybe we can keep it going that way rather than it blending with Warner and being part of the overall library. That's just my opinion.
And I share that opinion because I don't want to lose all of the live action and even the animated superheroes that DC has produced over the decades, and have them all there in one place only for them to be taken off and disappear forever.
I agree. So next time, folks, we're switching over to ISIS. A girl learns the dangers of hitchhiking. Now, does anybody really do that anymore? Could this be the first story that is really not relevant anymore? We'll review The Hitchhiker next time on the Shazam ISIS podcast. So until next time, folks, thank you so much for listening. Once again, Richard, everyone, take care.
Take care, everyone. Bye.